Hi, everybody. Welcome for joining us on this warm evening. It's warm where I am. I'm assuming it's probably warm where you are too. Um, and we're glad that you're able to take some time with us. I'm Alyssa DeFilippo with Parents Helping Parents, and I run a program called Connections California, which is our online statewide resource and information hub for transition to adulthood and adult services. So this evening, we are going to explore disability and the workplace. You can work. And no stranger to the PHP Connections California screen, we welcome back Debbie Drennan. Debbie Drennan wears many hats. She's a master's of social work and AT specialist for over 20 years, an assistive technology consultant and alumni of Parents Helping Parents with over 20 years experience there as well. She's an inclusion facilitator with Beginning Together, and perhaps, maybe most importantly, mother to two successful young men with disabilities. She became passionate about assistive technology and inclusion because of her children, one of whom has cerebral palsy and another one who has ADHD. Both are now successful, independent adults. So I'm going to turn it over to Debbie. Thank you for being here, Debbie. Thank you all for being here. And thank you, Beatrice, for interpreting.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let's see, advanced portion, optimize, share. And there we go. I think you should see it now. Fingers
Let's
crossed.
see. Yep.
Excellent. Excellent.
You're
Excellent.
good. Thank you.
There we go. All right, fabulous. And then I would like it, if you do have a question, please go ahead and put it in the Q&A. I'm going to ask Alyssa to go ahead and interrupt me if there's a question that is global enough that many people might want the answer to it on a more immediate basis. If you have questions pertaining to your own particular child, please wait to the very end at the Q&A section at the end, because what we can do at that point is turn off recording so that you can keep it personal and private to yourself, if that makes sense. All right, let's get started. So we're going to talk about disability in the workplace, and yes, you can work. First, I have to wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day. I hope you did not melt wearing your green today if you chose to wear green. I know I didn't melt, but I did wear green. So happy St. Patty's Day to everybody. And as Alyssa was saying, I have all these different hats that I wear, but truly what keeps me in this space are my kids. They are both young adults in their almost 30. One's almost 30. Dear Lord, how'd that happen? Anyway, and they are both doing really, really well. And I think a lot of it is because of the information that the Parents Helping Parents provided me with, as well as assistive technology tools that help them be successful both in school and beyond. So I'm going to be talking a lot about that. But sort of the format I'm going to start with, this is our agenda. I'm going to start talking about the laws. I'm going to tell you a little bit about both federal and California laws that pertain to individuals with disabilities and employment in particular. And then we're going to address that $1,000,000 question of, do I disclose my disability? Who do I disclose it to? Do I have to disclose my disability? That's the $1,000,000 question, right? And then how do you obtain any needed accommodations and assistive technology tools you need to assist you on your job? And then we're going to give you, this is a resource-rich presentation. You will probably be getting a copy of the slide deck, I'm assuming, tomorrow or shortly thereafter. So you will be able to look at all the links and explore further. And so I'd like to keep lots and lots of resources for you. Okay. So let's start with the laws. The Americans with Disabilities Act, and there was an amendment to it in 2008, is the big one. And basically it says, that people with disabilities are members of society, and we need to make sure that they can participate as fully as they are able to in the society that we live in. And that's essentially what ADA is, right? It does go into accommodations and modifications for buildings, for elevator buttons, all those little things, ramps, all big. They're little, but they're big because without those, access is just not there. And ADA applies to employers with more than 15 employees. They must not discriminate against a person with a disability. Hiring them, anything, they cannot discriminate if they have more than 15 employees. The ADA also defines what is a disability and what a qualified individual with a disability is. And it defines what a reasonable accommodation is. Okay. Um, and there's another act called the Section 508 of the Rehab Act. It was again, telecommunications guidelines were put in 2017. And this basically now talks about the computer, the internet. And I'm really going into this a little bit today because there's even more coming. But this basically requires federal agencies to ensure that their technology, electronic information technology, is accessible to people with disabilities. And it applies both to the employees and members of the public. So that's where you get accessible websites, you get PDFs that are readable with screen readers, you have things that you can make bigger if you need it bigger. So these are all parts of the Section 508 of the Rehab Act. And that's, again, that's a big piece of what's happening is having the internet accessible to individuals with disabilities. Okay. And there's more on the federal level. These all still exist. And I didn't want to go into every single one, but I wanted you to know there is a resource for you to go and take more information and dig into it if you wanted to about all the different laws and regulations related to disability discrimination. So there's your website to go look, explore, and find out more. But there is the new thing that I wanted to make sure to address is America's AI action plan. In 2025, there was a new thing that came up about in last summer, saying that essentially the Department of Labor, workforce programs, WIOA, all of those different things now are being encouraged to incorporate AI skill building into their services for both youth and adults. The emphasis is on training individuals on what AI is, how to use it, and how to prepare those job seekers into a labor market where AI is, the vision is going to be deeply embedded across all industries. Now, when we think about AI, we think about ChatGPT, right? We think about Gemini, Google Gemini. They are, and there's other ones. Microsoft has one. I forget the name of it. They are ubiquitous. AI is here. We're using it already. And it's only right that the youth are also taught, and job seekers are also taught how to use AI to benefit themselves as they go into the workforce. So this is a federal guideline that has been put out in the summer of last year.
Debbie,
And yes.
I don't want to interrupt, but
Oh,
what's
interrupt.
happening is that there is a black rectangle on the screen that is blocking out some of the.
Oh,
So maybe what I have found is that if when you share, you do
hmm.
not check the optimize something. It's under the share sound button.
Oh,
So if you
okay.
unclick that, these rectangles go away. I found that out presenting myself from
Oh,
Google
isn't that
Slides.
interesting? Because I'm not
Yeah,
seeing anything at all on my
right,
screen. Oh, well,
right. You
thank you for
wouldn't
sharing that information. All right. So I'm going to unshare and then
unshare and then
reshare.
share. Right,
Yeah.
right. Thank
Okay.
you.
Sorry about that, guys. I had no idea. So I've unshared and now I'm going to reshare and I'm going to just share sound. Okay.
Right.
And share. And
That should
hopefully,
be fine.
hopefully all is well.
Okay, it's lagging a little. There we go.
There
No,
it
no,
goes.
no rectangle. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And thanks for letting me know because I had no idea. A surprise. Anyway, on back to universal design. So I attended because AI is now the latest trend if in training individuals who are looking for jobs. I thought I would find out more about it. And the LEAD Center, which is, I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, had a great webinar called Universal Design as the Foundation of AI Literacy. And basically, it's a way of thinking about prioritizing artificial intelligence, literacy, and skill development. And they had a group that works with individuals with cognitive disabilities talk about how they are using this as a way of training the individuals in their program on different computer systems like Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Google, because that is the basis. Computer literacy is the basis of AI literacy. So I thought that was kind of an interesting way of working that into it. So anyway, if you want to find out more about it, here's the link to their website, to the presentation. But I found it fascinating what people are doing with that. Local in California, I happen to know someone very well who works for the Department of Rehabilitation. And as of 2 weeks ago, it's my son, he indicated that there has been no push on their end yet for AI literacy training here in California, but the writing is on the wall. We know that. So it's just a matter of getting systems up to play. Okay. So there's also a place to go federally called the Federal Office of Disability Employment Policy. And under that umbrella, you have all these different groups. You have the Employer Assistance and Resource Network. You have the PEAT program, Employment and Accessible Technology. You have JAN, Job Accommodation Network, the LEAD Center on Employment with People with Disability, Economic Advancement and Care, Youth Advancing Policy for the Employment of Youth. All of these are under this umbrella of the Federal Office of Disability Employment. It's a fantastic website to go look and explore and learn more about each of these different things. And I will be going into some of the more specifics on them as we go through. Now let's go to California laws. Okay. And in California, there's something called the California Fair Employment and Housing Act. And basically what it says is it defines discrimination and disability in a more broader sense. So here in California, the definition of disability because of the California Fair Employment and Housing Act is bigger. Okay, there's more to it. So, and it isn't, and there's so not only is the definition of disability broader, so is the obligation to provide reasonable accommodations. Okay, and it is, again, it is not the same as the Social Security disability definition, which is what the federal government uses. So the ADAA, A1, which is the ADA definition, is a person who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activity. It includes people who have a record of such an impairment, even if they do not currently have a disability. It also includes individuals who do not have a disability, but are regarded as having a disability. And it also makes it unlawful to discriminate against a person based on that person's association with a person with a disability. That is federal law. State law is much broader. It is an impairment that makes performance of a major life activity difficult. A limitation, not a substantial limitation. So it is much broader here in California. And when you think about major life activities, what does that mean? Oh, sorry, I took that slide out because it wasn't working well for me. A major life activity is walking, standing, sitting, eating, breathing, reading, writing, learning, etc. Those are all considered major life activities. And the law covers in the employment area, all of these different areas: recruitment, pay, hiring, firing, promotion, training, leaves, layoffs, anything that's employment related, the California law covers. And again, other important things to note, to keep in mind, it is if you are associated with a person with a disability, that generally refers to someone who is lives with somebody who with a disability and is a caregiver for that person. You cannot be discriminated against because you are a caregiver for a person with a disability. Okay, so the tricky part for both the laws, federally and statewide, is the employer is obligated to provide a reasonable accommodation unless the accommodation would represent an undue hardship to the business operation. That's the not well-defined part. What is an undue hardship, right? How do you define that? Okay, so there's the question, and that's where lawsuits come into play. In October, California had a new regulation regarding AI and employment, because what they're basically California was saying that, wait a minute, we want to make sure that if an employer is using AI, that the use of that tool will not result in discrimination, even if unintended. And in particular, what they were thinking about is resumes. So, all resumes are electronic nowadays, correct? So what they wanted to make sure is that if there is an electronic resume and the company is using AI to vet those resumes, the AI vetting does not inadvertently or unintendedly discriminate against people with disabilities. Okay. And this is going to be starting in 2027. And in 2027, employers are going to have to notify their applicants and their employees before using AI to make significant decisions, such as, are you going to get this job? And offering that employee or that applicant an opt-out. No, I want a person to look at my resume. Okay. And they're also going to require audits to protect against unintended discrimination. So I think this is nice. I like that California did this. I think it's very, very helpful and very thinking forward, and I appreciate that. Okay. So let's talk about disclosing the disability, right? When do I have to disclose my disability? Do I have to disclose my disability? Who do I tell if I need to? So you are not required to disclose your disability at any time during the hiring process unless you need a reasonable accommodation during that process. So you can have, let's say you have ADHD or a learning disability. You can go through the whole process of becoming employed, get hired without disclosing your disability. And I know many young adults who have done this. Because if you do not need a reasonable accommodation during that process, you do not have to say, hey, by the way, if you do get hired and you do need that reasonable accommodation to do the work, then you do need to disclose your disability to either your manager or to the HR department, depending on the size of the company, so that you can get your reasonable accommodations. Okay. And a reasonable accommodation could be something as simple as I need to have notice I need to have a calendar set up, and I need to have notice of meetings coming up on my calendar 2 days in advance, because I need to be able to organize my time. I need to know what's coming, right? That can be a reasonable accommodation. Another reasonable accommodation would be, hey, you know what? I need to use a summarizer tool when I'm reading reports, so that they can be summarized for me using an AI tool. And that would be a reasonable accommodation based on your disability. Okay. So when you're thinking about disclosing your disability, you need to know 5 things. And this was a great little thing that came out in 2014, not too long ago, which is basically you need to be able to know the 5 selves, which means you have to have self-advocacy. You have to know how to advocate for yourself. You have to have self-determination, know that it's you who has to do it, have self-esteem, feel proud about doing it, self-efficacy, and self-sufficiency. So you have to know who you are, you have to know what you need, and you have to know how to ask for it. And that can be a little scary, especially when you're just coming out of high school. But it's really important. There is no shame in having a disability. There's no shame in needing an accommodation at all. And if that's what you're going to need to become employed, then that is what you're going to have to know is, hey, this is who I am. This is what I need. There is nothing wrong with my disability. I just need these things to continue to be successful, right? And so you can go and look at that and pull down that. By the way, this is a great little booklet on disability disclosure. It's an entire workbook that you can download and work with your youth, your class, to really help make sure the youth have these 5 Fs, 5 selves. Okay. It's a great little workbook. So if you do need to disclose your disability because you do need accommodation, employers require proof of that disability. So if you say, you know what, I have a learning disability, and these are my accommodations I need, the employer may say, can you show me proof of your learning disability? And then you would need to be able to provide that. They can only request medical records directly related to that disability. So if you say, you know what, I have a learning disability and I have dyslexia, they can't say, well, gee, we need to have your entire medical records. No, they only get it if it's related to a learning disability, and that's it. And for that, they may ask for something like an IEP or request a record from whoever helped you diagnose you with that learning disability, and that would be sufficient. If you have an IEP, if you have a 504, those usually are sufficient. Or something from college, depending, or if you're working with Department of Rehab, they will have it as well. So now that you've got your job and you need to get those accommodations, how do you do that? How do I ask for that accommodation? And this is a nice short video on the steps to asking for an accommodation, and hopefully it comes out. If not, let me know.
Hey, Sam.
Hey, Claudia, how are you?
I'm good. Are you going to class today?
I am. I'm doing the yoga.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Sam loves her job at the health club. Her dream career is to become a personal trainer. However, she's afraid of losing her job because of the side effects of her ADD medication. She spoke to her case planner about it and came up with a plan to ask her supervisor for an accommodation. Let's see how Sam handles it.
Hey Sam, is everything okay?
Hi, Chris. I'm about to speak with John, my supervisor, and ask for an accommodation. I'm nervous I'm going to say the wrong thing.
Well, listen, I think it's fantastic that you made the appointment, but before you meet with the guy, let's go over the steps you need to take to get an accommodation. Okay, so the first step is identify the part of your job where you're having trouble. For example, you get a little confused and you can't remember things. Second, you identify the challenge in your life. In this case, it's your medication. Third, you're able to identify what would help manage your side effects. For example, in this case, you're going to ask for help at your job.
Right. I'm having trouble with my tasks because of my medication. I guess I'll let John know how I can do my job better.
Oh, that sounds great. Now remember, you don't have to disclose too much.
Right. I don't really want people knowing that stuff about me or judging me because I have to take medication.
It's up to you to decide how much you want to disclose. Remember this, though. You want to start and end with your strengths. You are going to be fantastic.
Thanks, Chris. I feel a lot better. I'll let you know how it goes.
Come in.
Hi, John. Thanks for meeting with me.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Well, first I want to say that I love my job and I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
Well, I think you're doing really well here, Sam. As a matter of fact, I hear nothing but great things about your work. But you said you wanted to talk about something, so what's up?
Sometimes I forget the order of the task, but I do get everything done.
Okay. Well, do you feel that it's a serious enough issue where it's affecting your ability to do your work?
No, it's not serious, but I could use some help from Tina to make sure I'm doing the tasks in the right order. I just want to make sure I'm doing the best job I can.
Well, I prefer that Tina focus on her own duties while she's on her shift as opposed to worrying about anyone else's.
I understand. Could I come to you if I forget the order of the task? It won't be all the time.
Sure. But I'm not always available. So why don't I make a list of all your work that needs to be done in the order that it needs to be done, and I'll give it to you at the beginning of your shift?
Thank you, John. That would be really helpful. I really appreciate it. I want to continue to do the best job I can.
You got it. You're doing fantastic.
Even though John didn't give Sam the accommodation that she asked for, they were able to negotiate and find a solution that worked for the both of them. It involved a little give and take. Can you think of a situation where you negotiated with someone else to solve a problem?
Sam, good morning.
Hey, good morning, John. Thanks so much for talking to me yesterday. I really appreciate it.
You got it. My pleasure. As a matter of fact, I went ahead and made you a list. Let's go ahead and take a look at it, shall we? First things first, let's clean all the medicine balls. We have a class today. It's starting around 10. Let's make sure the children's play area is clean before anyone even gets here. Number 2 and 3 and 4, you can check for yourself.
Thanks.
Okay?
Yeah.
You got it.
So I thought that was nice because it really kind of broke down how to ask for an accommodation. Start with your strengths, start with where you struggle, then you say, this is what I need help with, this is how I think it can be solved, work with them on how to solve whatever the struggle is, and then end again with, hey, I really love being here and I want to do a good job, right? So that's how you ask for an accommodation. It's as simple as that, and as nerve-wracking as that. But that's how you do it. So when you think about self-advocacy, it's generally you don't have an IEP at work, right? There is no such thing as an IEP at work. It's up to you as the individual to be able to say, this is what I need, and this is how I get how I can be more successful in this job. So there's 3 parts to becoming well, actually 4. Become a effective self-advocate. They are know yourself, know your needs, know how to get what you need, and what I've added, because I think it's just as important, is know your rights. Learn to ask for what you need and you are entitled to. And I just love this quote from Judy Heumann: disability only becomes a tragedy when society fails to provide the things we need to lead our lives. Truth. So that is self-advocacy. And we are running, because I talk too much. I think we have time to show this one. So how do you master that skill of self-advocacy? I'm actually not going to show this video. I'm going to encourage you to go watch it on your own. It's a great video on how you master that skill. How do you become comfortable asking for what you need? And this is a great little video on talking about how to master that skill. So I'm going to encourage you to take a peek at it. But in the interest of time, I'm not going to show it. But know that it's there and you'll be able to click on that and take a look at it for yourself. So JAN, which I talked about before, it's that federal organization, is a great source for disability, for finding out about disability and employment. And they came up with a whole series on employment accommodation and pre-employment accommodation. What can an employer ask you? What can they ask an individual regarding disabilities? And they have a whole thing of do's and don'ts. So what questions can an employer ask at the pre-offer stage? They can't ask you anything. An employer is not allowed to directly ask an applicant if they have a particular disability. Now, if you have a very visible disability, that's a little different, because if you're coming in a wheelchair, if you come in using a white cane, if you come in with a disability that is apparent, they may note that, but they're not allowed to ask you about it. Okay. And they also can't ask about can't ask you a question that is closely related to that disability. Okay. So they can't ask you. Basically, they're not allowed to ask you about a disability before you are employed with them. Okay. But if you come in using a wheelchair, And the employer may say, you know that our second floor, we don't have an elevator for. And I see you use a wheelchair. Do you use the wheelchair all the time? Is there a way for you to get up to the second floor without using a wheelchair, or will we need to have you on the first floor? And that's where you can have a conversation about what a reasonable accommodation might be, right? So let's talk about what is a reasonable. It talks about cost to employer. It talks about essential job functions, and it also talks about assistive technology. So if the employer has a second floor, you use a wheelchair, there's nothing but stairs up there, you can say, hey, is there any way I could do the job on the first floor? Do I need to be on the second floor? Can things move down? Or is there a way to put an elevator in for the second floor, depending on how big the company is? So there's things you can do at that point. But again, they cannot discriminate based on your disability in that pre-employment area. That's not allowed. Okay. So when you look at reasonable cost and you look at accommodations, you're also looking at assistive technology. And assistive technology is, there's two different things about assistive technology. And basically, it's any tool, whether you buy it, whether you have it customized, made off the shelf, made it for you, that helps an individual with a disability maintain, increase a part of their disability. So it could be anything. It's truly anything. And in California, for adults, there is something called Ability Tools, which is through the Federal Assistive Technology Act, abilitytools.org. You can go and take a look at it. It is a way for adults to find out more information about assistive technology, and for both employment and independent living. Okay. In the Lanterman Act, for those who are regional center clients, the Lanterman Act refers to assistive technology as adaptive equipment and supplies in a couple different areas, including in supported living. So it is under laws. Okay. And again, here is the official definition of assistive technology on the federal level. Okay. And so assistive technology tools are really important for individuals with disabilities to be aware of. It's also very important that individuals with disabilities be aware that they may be using a particular assistive technology tool in high school, in schooling, but they may need different tools when they exit out of the school system for employment. It might be different. So make sure the assistive technology needs for their adult goals are addressed in your transition IEPs. Okay. And here's an example. Let's say you're looking at employment. You have to make sure if they have a job, say, of really wanting to work in at a company like, let's say, Google. Why not? It's up there. And they want to work at Google and they want to be able to use the computer systems there, but they need to have everything talked out loud to them and they need to have things summarized. Well, they need to have that, make sure they know how to use those tools as an adult. So those assistive technology assessments are really important. Okay. And also in the independent living skills area, assistive technology assessments for independent living skills should also be addressed in your transition plan. And this is very individualized. I can't give you a list of tools because it's really depends on the person. It's individualized to that adult, to that person with a disability as to what works for them in those situations. What my older son who has CP uses is very different than my younger son with ADHD, what he uses. But they both use assistive technology tools as adults in both their employment and in their independent living. So, it's something that is out there. And this came out, this is a secondary transition planning, the basics, how to achieve successful outcomes and meet mandates. This came out by the California Department of Transition Alliance. and came out in 2020. And it talks about high expectations and how to have effective transition planning. And I really like this full document. But what I really liked in this document, and this is hard to see, and I know it's a little blurry, and I'm sorry, is these are the essential life skills for all teens. If you're looking at that transition IEP, if you're looking at having someone transition out of school to college to beyond, these are essential life skills for all teens. Okay. Independent life skills, financial literacy, use of technology at work, at home, socially. So, computer literacy, self-determination, self-management, employability skills, and they have use of technology highlighted in there. So, these are all life skills that all teens need. And assistive technology and accommodations fit in so many different ways, so many different places in this chart. I just loved it. So if you're like thinking, well, gee, I don't know what to put in my kid's IEP about transition, I haven't, look at this. This is a good starting place to say, these are some areas that I want my youth to be able to be successful in. So let's look at that, and let's look at accommodations and tools to help them be successful. Okay, so anyway, I really like this. So back to AI, because that is the federal push, is having individuals who are looking for jobs be AI savvy. So what do you need for AI? The first thing you need is computer literacy. You need to be able to use a computer. You need to be able to use email. You need to be able to use internet. You need to be able to use Word document or a Google Drive. You need to know how to do all of that. So you need to have computer literacy. And there are a ton of computer literacy classes that you can take, that online you can have in a school setting, where you can learn those important skills. And if you're not sure what computer literacy is, I gave you a YouTube link you can watch. And you also have to know, what are the AI basics? When someone says, machine learning, and someone says, chat GPT, and someone else talks about Gemini, and someone says the summarizer tool, you have to know what they're talking about. So AI basic courses are available. Again, there's a lot of them out there on the internet. Take a peek. And this is a growing field. So I can't tell you which one is the best, because really it's just come out in the last year or two. So I haven't had a chance to vet them all. I don't have that kind of time. But know that they're out there and to be explored. And again, if you want to find out about more AI in employment of people with disabilities and how it can be truly actually very, very helpful, there's a great YouTube that you can watch, which talks about things like using a summarizing tool, putting things automatically onto a calendar from your emails. There's different things that can be used that can really be helpful. And also things like for people who use video learning. Well, let's use a QR code. Make a QR code of a YouTube private video on how to use something using a video learning. So there's lots out there. But again, you have to have that computer literacy to get started. Okay, it is a developing product system, so I can't tell you what's best, but know that it's out there. And again, keep in mind that the assistive technology and accommodations needed in school for school learning may be very different than what you will need in employment. I know for my younger son, he relied heavily on the school calendar that they had for assignments. I forget what it's called, but most schools have like a calendaring system where the teachers put these different assignments and when the midterms are and when the finals are and things like that on a calendar that the student can access. Well, that's not something that is generally available beyond the school system. You have to create your own calendar. So one of the things we had to do with him was teach him how to use, and we chose Google Calendar, how to use a Google Calendar, how to set reminders, how to set, different things up in the calendar so that he knew how to access and use a Google Calendar. And that was an accommodation he still uses to this day. I use it to this day. But he had to be explicitly taught, and that's okay. If that's something you think you might need or your child might need, make sure it is explicitly taught, and put that in the IEP or the 504. Okay. And now Jan is a fabulous tool for finding out about resources for accommodation and tools in employment. They have something called the Ask Jan Toolkit, and it helps the employers and you navigate the accommodation process under ADA. And it also has the A to Z, which talks about different disabilities and different accommodations that can be considered. So if you're not even sure where to start, like what accommodation might I need for my, I have a learning disability and I want to be a veterinarian, what accommodations might I need? You can go to this Ask Jan resource and pop it in and see what it comes up with as a place to start. And they also have an online searchable accommodation resource. So if you're looking at what accommodations I could think about, here's your resource is Jan. Now, again, that's the federal resource. They also have something that came out with Assistive Technology and Employment Toolkit, created by the AT3 Center. And this is a resource for really looking at assistive technology tools for employment for individuals with disabilities. And something else to be aware of, to explore and look at and know, this is another place I can go to find out what's out there if you're not sure. Okay. So great. I need an accommodation. I need to have, like, my older son has his own personal laptop system set up at his employer because of how he accesses the computer. It's a very specialized because of his cerebral palsy. So who paid for that customized laptop and setup for him? Is it the employer? That is your primary place to go. The employer pays for it in general. It is up to them to make sure that the person has their needed accommodations. If the individual is a Department of Voc Rehab client, the Department of Voc Rehab will be able to provide those tools if they are needed to become successfully employed. But you have to already be a client of Department of Rehab. You can't say, "Ooh, I need to go to this job. I got employed. I'm at this job, and oh shoot, I need to get a custom laptop set up." The employer's going, "Gee, that's an undue hardship for us. We really can't afford it." You can't turn around and become a client of DOR at that point. That's not how it works. You have to be a client of DOR before you get that job. Okay. If it is a medically necessary device, such as speech, you need to have an AAC device set up. Then your medical insurance should be your primary source of funding. If you are a regional center client, you need to make sure that no one else will pay for it and that it addresses one of your goals with the regional center to have that tool. Okay, so there is a way of getting some tools paid for through the regional center, but you can't they have to have said all of these other things are not applicable. Then the regional center becomes your funder of last resort. Okay. So when we're talking about Department of Voc Rehab, that is a federal thing, and California has the DOR as well. It needs to be related to employment goals. Services can include help paying for college or career training, work readiness training, and assistive technology tools. Okay. They are going to be starting an order of selection mandate sometime in the spring. Again, 2 weeks ago, when I talked to somebody I know very well who works at DOR, they hadn't really yet been trained on that. And there's no confirmed date set as of 2 weeks ago, but they are going to be starting it. So basically that means if you have a severe disability, or they're going to rank, and this is dumb, but this is the only way of doing it. They're going to rank the disability from severe to just a disability. And then based on your ranking, if you have a more severe or extreme disability, you will get priority over those who just have a smaller disability. What is a small disability? I don't know. But this is what they're starting, an order of mandate. They did this like 15 years ago. They had this as well, and then they faded it. So, but now they're going to be starting it up again because of money. So know that that's coming. So that if you are of getting ready to exit out of high school, and you're considering accessing Department of Rehab services after high school, you can apply for Department of Rehab services now to not have to worry about this mandate. And that's what I would recommend you consider doing if it's a service you might want to access. Okay. There's also something called supported employment. And what this does is this is for those, again, who are regional center clients and under Department of Developmental Services and Department of Rehab, and they work together. And this does is it provides additional job coaching in a competitive work setting with supports fading as mastery of those skills emerge. So basically, instead of Department of Rehab saying you need to be employed for 6 months, then we're done, they're saying, you know what, we're going to continue to support you in this setting for a period of, I think it's 18 months. Don't quote me on that. So make sure that you have the skills and mastery of the job skills that you need. And then once you have those skills and have shown that you have those skills, then we're going to fade that out. And that's if you have to be a DOR client as well as a client of the regional center. They work together on that. And so here's a quick little video on what that is, what is supported employment.
Supported employment is a system of training individuals with a disability on how to become a fully productive employee. It's key to find jobs that are appropriate for an individual based on their skill set and limitations. When the right job is found and a business allows a job coach to work with the new employee, great things can happen. Here's how it's done. A person with a disability would like to enter the workforce, but they may need a little extra help. So they go to the Department of Rehabilitative Services. This is a state agency that provides assistance to people with disabilities. After meeting with a counselor, an employment agency like Stand Up Incorporated, which specializes in training workers with disabilities, is contracted, and a job coach is assigned to provide assistance. A job coach's role is to match the skills and abilities of the job seeker to the career that coincides with their employment goals. This ensures that the jobs that are applied for are jobs that are appropriate. The job coach and their client work together to find employment opportunities in the same way that you and I would look for a new job. Applications and resumes are submitted and interviews are scheduled. At the interview, if the business is willing, the coach may accompany the applicant. The coach is not there to interfere, but rather to assist the applicant should the need arise. When talking with the interviewer, the job coach will explain how they can offer support if the candidate is hired. After a job is offered and accepted, the job coach and new employee arrive to work together to begin training. The job coach is there to assist the new employee. They work with the new employee one-on-one to help train them to ensure productivity. This saves the business time and money. As the employer explains the job to the new employee, the job coach listens and learns the job as well. Job coaches learn new jobs all the time. A job coach is professional. They have experience in a variety of fields and work settings. As the new employee learns their new job, they may be a little less productive in the beginning. The coach is there to take up any slack, so at the end of the day, the business has achieved 100% productivity. This may have been accomplished 30% by the employee and 70% by the coach, but as time goes on and the employee increases in productivity, the coach will back away little by little. Before you know it, the employee has reached 100% of the productivity goal, which is always determined by the employer. After the employee has become more independent, the job coach won't need to be there all the time, but will simply check in occasionally to ensure that things are going smoothly. If anything were to happen and a job coach is needed, they are only a phone call away. Job coaches are available to help with any issues, whether good or bad. Just call and someone will be there. Hiring an individual with a disability is a win-win. The business gets a committed, hard-working employee, and the person with a disability gets the chance to show their value in the workplace. Stand Up Incorporated. We're in the...
So obviously that was created by a company that does supported employment. I'm not sure what state they're in, but there are places here in California that do that as well, that are contracted with Department of Rehab. So and that is supported employment. And then there's also something called customized employment. Again, this is for individuals who are also regional center clients. And what it is a job coach works with that employer to customize a job based on the current employer needs and develop a set of job duties with specifics on supervision and a job location, and representation by a professional chosen by the individual, and provide services and support at that job location. So it's more, it's supported employment, but more with customization in that employment, so that that individual with a disability can be successful in that job. So it's a little bit more customization to it, but that is something that is also available. And if you're interested in finding out more about it, I recommend you go to the transcend.org website and get some more information about customized employment. Okay. And I do want to mention this really quickly because this is a slight change for those who are familiar with Department of Rehab. They also have something called paid work experience, where Department of Rehab helps pay for a job for an individual for a certain period of time so that they can gain work experience, with the ultimate goal being that they will then be hired by that company. And this used to be something they did for all ages. This service is now only available for individuals until the age of 23. And it has to be a job that is related to an IPE goal. So again, if you're looking at maybe having an individual who, say, wants to work at a movie theater, as an example, and they're going to need some paid work experience so that they can, go out there and get a job and maybe get that job. You can, and they are a DOR client, you can ask about paid work experience at a participating or at a movie theater for a short period of time as sort of a way of seeing, is this going to fit? Okay, so know that that is available, but only until that individual is aged 23. Okay, so it is tightening up. And of course, I'm leaving you with 1,000 resources: the Disclosing a Disability, Youth Disclosure in the Workplace, the 411 and Disability Disclosure, all of the different things regarding California resources, Ability Tools of California, telephone access programs, voice options, deaf and disabled, speech generating devices for telephone access. You can get AAC tools for telephone access if needed. These are all available to you. And this is how you can connect with me directly if you need to get specific information. Oh, I'm good. And I did leave time for questions. Hey, hey, hey.
You did. Very well
So let's
done.
do
Very well done.
questions.
Before questions, I just want everyone to direct everyone's attention to the chat, where there is an English evaluation link and a Spanish evaluation link. I have closed the chat now, so those will stay in place. If you can click on them and answer those 4 questions, we'd very much appreciate it. So way back at the beginning of the presentation, you were talking about discrimination.
Yes.
So what would actually fall under discrimination?
What would fall under discrimination would be things like you come into, let's say you're applying for a job, and you come into that job site and you are, you have a learning disability. So you request an accommodation to help fill out the job application. If by asking for that accommodation, the employer says, oh, well, you're not right for this job anyway, that is discrimination, because they are discriminating against you based on the fact that you have a disability, not that you can't do the job, but that you have a disability. That is discrimination. So that is an example. But basically, they're saying because of your disability, we don't want you here. That's discrimination.
Okay, and not very nice.
No.
Okay,
not the right thing to do at all.
Somebody's asking about how to get a job and maintain public benefits. And that's a whole huge topic in and of itself.
Yes.
But I can put in the chat, while Debbie is answering just a little bit of it, some video. We've done several videos on it, but the best one that I think was by Ellen Cookman, who is an attorney, and she really has a very logical mind. So it's about work benefits, work incentives with working. So I'll find that video and put it in the chat.
But let me just address that, because the trend from the federal government is that in order, you have to work to get Medi-Cal, for example, to get some public benefits. That is the trend that is coming, probably by the end of the year, unless California puts something in place, which they might. But that is something we're all looking at very carefully here, who work with individuals with disabilities. And I'm looking at it very carefully because my older son, who is physically disabled, does rely on in-home support services, which is a public benefit. And he does work full time. So there's different, as you work, you can have a job. And if you are also receiving, let's say, Social Security, you can work up to a certain amount and still maintain Social Security. They will just deduct out of your Social Security, I think $1 for every $2 you earn until you hit a threshold. And I don't know what that threshold is this year. It changes every year, but that's kind of how that rolls. In terms of medical insurance, there are also under Medi-Cal, there is a program that my son is under called the HCBS program, Home Community Based Services Program. And basically, it's like if he didn't receive his in-home support services, then he would be in a nursing home, because he would. So the HCBS program pays for in-home support services to keep, not IHSS, but pay for attendant care for him to be in his home. And he is working full time. And that has a higher threshold for income than typical public benefits. So it's a different program. So there's different programs. It depends on the program that you need. It should not stop you from trying to work. And again, if you know that threshold, that's really helpful. Again, it's going to be different for everybody. Sorry. That's as good as I can get as an answer.
Okay, sorry, I had to come back on.
Oh, that's okay.
How about addressing independent life skills assessments as they relate to work? And now the young adults no longer in high school, so they don't have that opportunity. How do you figure out what they need at work?
So independent life skills at work could be things like social, right? How do you interact at work? How do you come into an office? How do you get your own lunch? How do you, all the different things that go along with working in anywhere, right? There's a lot to it in terms of it. How do I get to work? How do I leave work? Those are all independent life skills, and it depends on the individual. Department of Rehab, if you are a Department of Rehab client, and you are looking to get a job, that is one of the things they can work with you on, is those social skills that come with being in a job. They can work on how to get transportation skills to and from the job. They can work on things like, how do I make my own lunch? How do I socialize at lunch? These are things the Department of Rehab can do. If you're a regional center client, and you have more needs than that, then you can work with your regional center client and get an IPE goal around those soft skills, because those are the key to a lot of employment is soft skills. And they can really be a good resource for learning those soft skills under an IPE goal. So that's another place you can go to learn those skills. So those are two different places to go to learn those independent skills.
Okay, and what would folks be asking, or the youths themselves be asking schools and their IEP teams or their 504 teams who are seeking job opportunities prior to graduating from high school?
Certainly.
What are some things they could do?
Well, some things they can do is they can work with the transition team, if they're on an IEP transition, on looking at, hey, is there any way that I can get out there in the community and do some internship work with support in a field that I'm interested in as one of my IPE goals for transition. And is there a way you can help me get that and maintain that, like once a week? Go to somewhere like a library if you want to learn how to shelve things, and filing systems and all of the different things that go with that, or greeting people, or, so that's something you can work with your IEPE team on, is that for transition. There's also, you can also work with your regional center. If you're a regional center client, you can work with them as well on those goals, as long as it's an IPE goal that you have to learn those skills. So these are things you can add into that very important transition plan. If you're on a 504 plan, you don't have a transition plan, but you can create goals not you can let the team know these are my goals, because 504 is mostly, are you going to graduate high school? That's their goal. Once you graduate high school, 504 says, woo, we did our job, you're on your way. But you need to know, as a 504 student with a disability, what accommodations am I going to need in college, or am I going to need in employment? Are they going to be different than what I've been using here? And if they are going to be different, I need to put into my 504 learning how to use those tools so that I can be effective once I graduate out of this school system. So you could add that into your 504 plan. I know I did that with my younger son. He was in third grade. He wasn't transitioning yet out of high school. And he needed to learn how to keyboard. And they didn't teach keyboard back in the day as a regular thing. So they actually pulled him into a program that he did during recess, and we agreed to it, to teach him how to keyboard because his handwriting was non-existent. But he learned how to keyboard in third grade through that goal on his 504. So you can have that added to a 504 plan easily.
You did mention something about the work experience potentially
Yes.
provided by DOR. So
Yes.
if a DOR, if you're already a client of
Yes.
DOR receiving vocational services,
Yes.
can you also participate in the work experience?
Yes. That would be part of your vocational service. Those would be part of the services that you could receive from DOR. Yes, absolutely.
Good. That was an easy one.
I like it when it's a simple yes, no. Yes.
Yeah.
Talk to your DOR service coordinator. That's what
So,
you do.
Okay, if we take maybe just a couple of more questions.
Sure. Yeah.
And
That's
we're going
fine.
to give folks time to click on those links in the chat so we
Yes.
can get up to maybe 75% participation. We're at about,
Please, that would be
which is
great.
great. So if you please click on that, you know who you are. You haven't clicked yet. Okay, so what happens if there's a problem that happens at work? Department has restructured. There are new policies and procedures that come into play. There's very minimal training.
Yes.
What can a person with a disability do?
Well, one thing you can do, if there is a change in employment like that, and you were, let's say, already a client of Department of Rehab, or didn't need to become, but can become a client of Department of Rehab. If there is a change in employment, one, you can become a client of Department of Rehab again to receive extra services, or two, you can talk to your HR or manager and say, based on my disability, these are the accommodations I need to get through this restructuring. And be specific about what you need. This is where you are asking for appropriate accommodation for that. So if, for example, it's a complete restructuring of the department, you're now answering to 3 different people you've never answered to before, and they want you to fill out these 5 new forms, and it's just a big gah. You can say, what I need to know is, who do I talk to about what? Specifically in writing. I need to have these forms determined. I need to know exactly what each form is for in writing and who gets it. And I need to have some training on how to complete these forms appropriately based on my disability. And then it becomes an accommodation at work. So that's a way of addressing it.
Okay. A couple of folks are asking, how do you find a job coach? So maybe just to break it down a little bit between DOR and regional center, because there's a little confusion.
It is a little confusing. If you are a DOR client, that is something that Department of Rehab can provide you as part of your individualized plan for employment, is a job coach. And that's something that they can provide. If you are a regional center client, okay, this is where it gets to be sticky wickets. Because Regional Center and Department of Rehab have a statewide agreement for this, for job coaches. So you may get the back and forth a little bit. The Regional Center may say, well, that's something DOR does. DOR may say, oh, that's something the Regional Center does in your case. It really depends on if it's going to be for supported employment or customized employment. If it's going to start with supported employment, you can have DOR start. And then if you're finding out that, look, you know what, we still don't have it quite down. We're this close. We're this close to having independent skills at this job, but we're not quite there yet. Then DOR can transfer it to the regional center for continued job coaching. Okay. So that's how that would work. So, and if it's strictly customized employment, that is through regional centers. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and I'm sending to somebody who is just asking what is the difference between DOR and regional centers. So
Okay. Yeah.
I wrote something out. Okay. All right. This might be one that we don't want to end on, but we might just have to because it's 7:37.
Okay.
What if you're with DOR, but you're just not getting services? What do you do?
Well, they have several different things you can do within the DOR system. One is you can always, if you're not getting the services that are on your individualized plan for employment, your IPE, if you have specific services stated and you're not receiving them, whether it be there's just no one in the area to provide that service, you're on a wait list somewhere, what have you. It depends on why you're not getting the service. But first of all, the service has to be on your IPE. That's step one. If it's not on your individualized plan for employment, you won't receive the service. If it's on your IPE, or if you're not happy with the services you are receiving on your IPE, there's several things you can do. One, if you feel like you and your particular counselor are having troubles communicating, you're not getting what you need from them, you can involve the manager. And say, hey, can you have a second set of eyes on this? I feel like you're not hearing me. I feel like I'm not getting what I need for employment. So you can always involve the manager. They do have a process. Or you can ask for a new counselor at DOR if you think that might help. But do know, just like all government systems, there is a lack of funding. And there is a lack of resources. You may be on a waiting list, and this does happen. You may be on a waiting list for a job coach, and there's nothing DOR can do to make that faster. They are always looking for new companies. They're always looking for new people, but it is a reality that you may be on a wait list, and there's nothing Department of Rehab can do about that at that time. So just know that that's sort of the environment we live in as well.
Okay.
So hopefully that won't happen.
Well, hopefully a lot of things won't happen that may be happening in the near future, but we'll get through them
we won't talk
all.
about that.
We're going to get through them all.
Exactly.
So, by the clock on the screen, it's 7:40. People are dropping off. I want to respect everyone's time. So I want to thank you, Debbie. As always, it's such resource-rich trainings. You will be getting the slides. You'll be able to click on everything, every video, the ones that we saw, the ones we didn't see, all the resources in there. It makes my job easy because normally when people say something, I'm putting the resource in the chat, but I didn't have to do hardly anything. Just the California Transition Alliance, that chart. I put that in there because that is something really just huge. Explore the whole website. It's really
it's amazing.
You can work or we can work program they put together. Anyway,
oh yeah,
it's a wonderful website. So I thank Debbie. I thank Beatrice for your interpretation skills. We're very lucky to have you, and I thank all of you for coming. Because if it weren't for you, we couldn't keep bringing these things to everyone. Look at all those clapping. You're getting so much love, Debbie.
Oh, the love.
Any last words?
Well, thank you. I just want to thank everyone for being here. And know that it goes back to self-advocacy and being comfortable with asking for what you need. Having a disability is not wrong. You just need to know what you need to be successful. That's your job as a person. And that's our job as people in their lives to make sure they know who they are and know what they need to be the person they want to be. There you go.
Love it. All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks again, Debbie. Always nice seeing you. Hopefully I'll see you in April. And hey, break a leg.
Hey, thank you.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.